Some men spend their whole lives trying to make noise. They buy the loudest cars, talk the loudest in the bar, and think that volume equals power. But you know better. You've been around long enough to know that the most dangerous thing in the room isn't the man screaming. It's the man sitting in the corner nursing a drink, watching the door. The man who doesn't have to prove anything because he's already survived everything. This is the story of a man like that. His name was Ronin, and this is how he brought an empire to its knees without raising his voice. The Rusty Nail wasn't a pretty ship. She was an old hauler, a retrofitted transport from the Terran expansion wars 50 years ago. She leaked oil, she smelled like recycled air and stale coffee, and her warp drive rattled like a bag of bolts in a washing machine. But she was reliable, she didn't quit. Just like her pilot. Ronin stepped off the ramp onto the docking bay of Council Station 4. He didn't rush. At his age, rushing was a good way to make a mistake, and in deep space, mistakes killed you. He wore heavy combat boots that had seen more mud than polish. His cargo pants were faded, the pockets filled with tools, not gadgets. A brown leather flight jacket cracked at the elbows covered a frame that was built like a brick outhouse. Solid, weathered, and unmovable. He ran a hand through his hair. It was short, bristly, and the color of steel wool. He had a face that looked like a roadmap of bad decisions and hard victories. A scar ran from his jaw to his ear, a souvenir from a shrapnel burst on a moon nobody remembered anymore. The station was loud. It was the hub of the Galactic Council, a place where 1,000 different species came to lie to each other in fancy clothes. It smelled of ozone, exotic perfumes, and the sour tang of bureaucratic fear. Ronin ignored the sights. He wasn't here for the sights. He needed a fuel coupling for his starboard engine, a hot meal that didn't come out of a tube, and a drink. Specifically, a whiskey. He made his way to the lower levels. The diplomatic sector was upstairs, all glass and light. Down here it was the pit. This is where the real work got done. This is where the mercenaries, the mechanics, and the drifters congregated. He found a cantina called the Void. It was dark, smoky, and quiet, just the way he liked it. He walked to the bar, his boots making a heavy, rhythmic thud on the metal grating. Clump, clump. Clump. The bartender, a creature that looked like a squid stuffed into a tuxedo, nervously polished a glass. "Whiskey," Ronin said. His voice was low. It sounded like tires crunching on gravel. "Earth blend, if you have it." "Neat, leave the bottle." He poured a glass. He watched the amber liquid settle. He took a sip, letting the burn wash away the taste of the recycled ship air. For a moment, there was peace. The peace lasted exactly 30 seconds. The double doors of the cantina were kicked open. They didn't just open, they were torn off their magnetic hinges. In stepped, or rather stomped, High Warlord Kaelara. She was a Vrakian. If you've never seen a Vrakian, imagine a tank that decided to walk on 2 legs. She stood 7 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates that were the color of bruised iron. She wore a cape made from the hide of some beast she'd probably killed with her bare hands. Her eyes were yellow, slit-pupiled, and burning with a rage that could melt steel. Behind her marched her personal guard, 4 of them. Massive, snarling, holding plasma rifles that hummed with unstable energy. The music in the cantina died. The chatter stopped. Every patron in the bar, smugglers, thieves, hardened criminals, scrambled. They dove under tables, they bolted for the back exit. They cowered. Because Kaelara wasn't just a soldier. She was the scourge of Sector 7. She burned worlds because she didn't like the weather. She strode to the center of the room. The floor plates groaned under her weight. She looked around with disgust. "I demand tribute," she bellowed. Her voice wasn't human. It was the sound of grinding gears. "This station is under the protection of the Vrakian Empire." "Where's the station master?" "Bring him to me so I may break his spine." Silence. Absolute terrified silence. The bartender was shaking so hard he dropped the glass he was holding. Kaelara sneered. "Cowards, soft spineless worms, is there no one here with the courage to face me? Is there no male among you worthy of looking me in the eye?" Ronin didn't turn around. He didn't flinch. He picked up the bottle and poured another 2 fingers of whiskey. Glug, glug, glug. In the deadly silence of the room, the sound of the liquid hitting the glass was loud. It was disrespectful. It was impossible. Kaelara's head snapped toward the bar. She saw the broad back of the human in the leather jacket. She saw the gray hair. She saw the casual way he swirled his drink. She stomped toward him. "You," she growled. "Small creature. Did you not hear the High Warlord speak?" Ronin took a sip. He smacked his lips slightly. I heard you, he said, not turning around. You're loud, hard to miss. You're scaring the squid. Knock it off. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath. If you've ever been the only man on the job site who kept working when the foreman was screaming his head off, you know this feeling. It's not about being brave. It's about knowing what matters. Noise doesn't get the job done. Focus does. Kaelara froze. Her brain couldn't process the information. A human, a species known for being squishy, short-lived, and fragile. Insulting her, she stepped closer. She could smell the engine grease and old tobacco smoke on him. You possess a death wish, she hissed, leaning down so her breath, which smelled like burning copper, washed over him. Turn and face me, or I will cleave you in two where you sit, Ronin sighed. It was the heavy, tired sigh of a man who just wanted to finish his shift and go home. He set the glass down carefully. He turned on the stool, slow and easy, his joints popping slightly. He looked up at her. He didn't look with fear. He looked with the appraisal of a mechanic looking at a transmission that was making a funny noise. I'm on a layover, Ronin said flatly. My ship needs a part. I've been hauling cargo for 3 weeks straight. I have a headache, a bad knee, and a thirst. I don't care if you're the Queen of Sheba or the Warlord of Mars. Sit down, shut up, or go outside. Kaelara's eyes went wide. Then they narrowed into slits of pure violence. She reached for the jagged vibro blade at her hip. I will mount your head on my bridge, she screamed, raising the weapon. She swung. It was a blow meant to decapitate. Fast, brutal, powered by rage, Ronin didn't panic. He didn't try to block it with strength. He wasn't young and he wasn't stupid. He moved. It was efficient. Minimal effort. He slid off the stool, stepping inside her guard. As her arm came down, he didn't catch the wrist. He struck the nerve cluster in her armpit with a stiffened thumb. Kaelara's arm went numb. The sword clattered to the floor. Before she could roar in confusion, Ronin kicked the inside of her knee, the weak point in her natural armor. She buckled. As she fell forward, he stepped aside and guided her face into the metal bar counter. Clang. It wasn't a fight scene from a movie. It was ugly, it was fast, it was brutal. Kaelara slumped to the floor, dazed. Purple blood trickled from her nose. Her 4 guards raised their rifles, roaring. Ronin didn't go for a weapon. He picked up his whiskey bottle, poured the remaining contents onto the bar to clean a spot, and looked at them. Don't, he said. He didn't shout it. He said it with the tone of a father catching his kids playing with matches. Absolute authority. Your boss is waking up, Ronin said, nodding to Kaelara, who was shaking her head, trying to clear the cobwebs. If you fire those plasma toys in here, you'll depressurize the hull and kill us all. Including her. Put him down. The guards hesitated. They looked at the human, then at their groggy leader, then at each other. They lowered the weapons. Kaelara pushed herself up. She shook her head, her vision cleared. She looked at the human. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't standing in a victory pose. He was wiping the bar with a rag. You, she rumbled, her voice thick. You struck me. You swung first, Ronin said. I finished it. Now are we going to have a problem? Or can I finish my drink? Kaelara stood up. She prowled over him again. But the rage was gone. In Vrakian culture, words were wind, violence was truth. And this small, gray-haired human spoke the truth fluently. You fight with the weight of a mountain, she said, wiping the blood from her lip. But you move like smoke. What is your clan? What is your rank? Retired, Ronin grunted. Retired? She tasted the word like it was foreign. You are a warrior who has laid down his sword? I'm a man who's tired of cleaning up other people's messes, Ronin said. Look, lady, I just want my part so I can leave. Kaelara stared at him. A plan formed in her mind. Her fleet was powerful, but it was undisciplined. It was blunt force. She needed something else. She needed a blade that didn't break. My fleet is docked in orbit, she said. We are departing for the Zeta sector. The rebels there have dug in. My infantry commander was incompetent. I executed him this morning. Ronin took a drink. Sounds like a hostile work environment. You will take his place, Kaelara said. Ronin laughed, a dry, rasping sound like sandpaper. Pass, I don't work for tyrants. And I don't take orders. Kaelara signaled her guards. More of them poured into the room. Dozens. The room filled with the hum of weapons charging. It is not a request, Kaelara said. You will serve, or I will destroy this station. I will burn it to ash. Every innocent life on it will be extinguished, including the mechanic fixing your ship. Ronin froze. He looked at the guards. He looked at the terrified bartender. He looked at Kaelara. He calculated the odds. He could kill 5, maybe 6 of them before they overwhelmed him. But the station would blow. Good people would die. He set the glass down, he adjusted his collar. "Blackmail," Ronin said, spitting on the floor. "Typical. Will you serve?" Ronin looked her in the eye. "I'll come along, but I don't serve. We do things my way. And if you threaten civilians again, I won't hit you in the nose. I'll put you in the ground." Kaelara grinned. It was a terrifying sight. "Acceptable. There's a difference between a volunteer and a man who does what needs to be done because nobody else can. Sometimes you don't pick the fight picks you. And when it does, you don't complain. You lace up your boots and you go to work." The Vrakian flagship, the World Breaker, was a marvel of engineering if you liked your engineering loud, hot, and dangerous. It smelled of sulfur and unwashed bodies. Ronin spent the first week in the brig, technically. But he didn't stay there. He picked the lock on the first hour, walked to the engine room, and fixed a coolant leak that had been driving him crazy from the sound. When the guards found him, he was covered in grease, explaining to the chief engineer why his bypass valve was garbage. Kaelara promoted him to guest commander the next day. She threw him into the training pits. She wanted to see if the bar fight was a fluke. Her elite shock troops were called the Reapers, 8-foot lizards with scales that could stop a small caliber bullet. They laughed when they saw Ronin. "Fresh meat," the squad leader, a beast named Gorak, sneered. "I will pick your teeth with your own ribs, little man." Ronin took off his jacket. He folded it neatly. He rolled up the sleeves of his flannel shirt. His arms were scarred, ropey with muscle. Not the puffy gym muscle of a young man, but the dense, hardened muscle of a man who has lifted heavy things for 40 years. "Less talking," Ronin said, "more fighting." The fight lasted 3 minutes. Ronin didn't try to overpower them. That's a young man's game. He used physics, he used gravity. When Gorak charged, Ronin didn't block. He stepped aside, hooked Gorak's ankle, and pushed. 300 pounds of lizard crashed into the wall. When the second one swung a claw, Ronin caught the thumb joint, universally a weak spot, and twisted until it popped. He fought dirty, he kicked knees. He stomped on toes, he used elbows and headbutts. He fought like a man who wanted to end the fight so he could go eat dinner. When the dust settled, the Reapers were groaning on the floor. Ronin was lighting a cigar. Kaelara watched from the balcony. Her second-in-command, a weaselly advisor named Valen, whispered, "He has no honor. He fights like a gutter rat." "No," Kaelara said, her eyes fixed on the human. "He fights to win. You fight for applause, Valen. He fights for results." She called him to the war room that night. The war room was dominated by a massive holographic map of Zeta Prime. The planet was a fortress. "The rebels are dug in here, here, and here," Kaelara said, pointing to mountain ranges. "My advisors say we should commence orbital bombardment. Glass the planet. Take the resources from the ash." "Lazy," Ronin said. He was standing in the back, cleaning his fingernails with a combat knife. The advisors gasped. "You speak to the warlord with such insolence?" "I speak the truth," Ronin said. He walked to the table. He looked at the map. "You glass the planet, you destroy the mines. You destroy the infrastructure. You win the rock, but you lose the prize. Plus, you kill 1 million civilians who are just trying to farm dirt." "Civilians are irrelevant," Valen sneered. Ronin looked at him. "Civilians are the point. You kill the people, you rule a graveyard. You want to win? You go in on the ground. You clear the bunkers. You minimize collateral damage. You make the population fear you, sure, but you also show them you aren't monsters." "That is a death sentence for our troops," Kaelara said. "The tunnels are trapped." "Only if you march in like idiots," Ronin said. "I'll lead the vanguard. Give me your Reapers. I'll teach them how to be soldiers instead of thugs." Kaelara looked at him. She saw the scars. She saw the gray hair. She saw the eyes that had seen too much death to be impressed by it. "You would lead the charge? A human?" "I lead from the front," Ronin said. "Or I don't lead at all. Leadership isn't about pointing a finger and saying, 'Go.' It's about saying, 'Follow me.' It's about being the first one in the mud and the last one to eat. If you've ever had a boss who sat in the AC while you dug the ditch, you know the difference." Ronin was a ditch digger. The drop on Zeta Prime was hot. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Ronin's pod slammed into the mud of the valley floor. The door blew off. "Move! Move! Move!" Ronin barked. The Vrakian troops, usually undisciplined berserkers, hesitated. The fire was intense. Lasers burned the air. Ronin didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon, not a fancy plasma rifle, but an old kinetic slug thrower he'd modified. Bang, bang, banged 3 shots. 3 dead rebels in the pillbox. "Get to cover," he ordered, suppressing fire on the ridge. "Flank left," the Reapers looked at him. They saw this small, gray creature running into the fire, calm as a monk. It shamed them, it inspired them. They charged. The battle raged for 3 days. It was a grinder. Mud, blood, and noise. Ronin was everywhere. He fixed jammed weapons. He dragged wounded aliens, creatures twice his size, to safety. He slept in the mud with them. He ate the same terrible rations. On the 3rd day, they reached the main bunker complex. It was a trap. Kaelara had come down to the surface. She wanted to see the victory. She was arrogant. She stepped into the main command center before it was cleared. "Secure!" she shouted. "Wait!" Ronin yelled. He saw the tripwire, too late. Explosions rippled through the ceiling. The mountain collapsed. Tons of rock and steel came crashing down. Darkness, dust, silence. Ronin woke up coughing. His head was bleeding. His leg was pinned, but he could feel his toes. He checked his rifle. "Broken. Report," he rasped. Silence. Then a groan. "Human." It was Kaelara. She was 10 feet away, buried under a massive support beam. It had crushed her armor. She was pinned flat. The air in the room was thinning. The scrubbers were dead. Ronin dragged himself free. His bad knee screamed in protest. He crawled over to her. She looked bad. Her purple blood was pooling. Her eyes were dim. "Leave me," she whispered. "My spine is crushed. I cannot move. A warrior dies where she falls." "Shut up," Ronin grunted. He examined the beam. It weighed at least a ton. "Nobody dies until I say so." "It is too heavy," she wheezed. "Save yourself, the air—" "I said shut up." Ronin wedged his shoulder under the beam. He found a leverage point. He planted his feet in the debris. He closed his eyes. He thought about every hard day he'd ever had. Every double shift, every mile marched with a rucksack. He summoned the old strength. The strength that doesn't come from muscles, but from pure, stubborn will. He pushed. Veins popped in his neck. His vision went white. His own bones creaked. The beam moved. 1 inch, 2 inches. "Move!" He screamed through grit teeth. Kaelara dragged herself free, gasping. Ronin let the beam drop. Boom! He collapsed, his chest heaving. He wiped the blood from his eyes. Kaelara stared at him. She was a warlord. She had conquered solar systems, but she had never seen strength like this. It wasn't the strength of a beast. It was the strength of a man who refused to quit. She crawled over to him. She took his human hand, so small compared to hers, in her massive clawed hand. "Why?" she asked. "I kidnapped you. I threatened you. Why save me?" Ronin coughed, spitting out dust. He looked at her. "Because we're in the same unit now," he said. "And you don't leave your buddy behind. Ever. Loyalty isn't a contract. It's not something you sign on a piece of paper, it's a code. It's looking at the man or woman next to you and saying, 'I got your back,' and meaning it even when the sky is falling. That's what separates the soldiers from the mercenaries." The aftermath was quiet. The rebels surrendered when they saw the Vrakians digging their own wounded out of the rubble, something they had never done before. Ronin had changed the culture of an entire army in 3 days. They were in the medical bay of the flagship. Ronin was sitting on a bio-bed, his leg in a cast, smoking a cigar that the medical droid was trying to confiscate. Kaelara walked in. She was limping, but she was upright. She wasn't wearing her armor, just a simple tunic. She looked smaller but more regal. The room went silent. The Reapers bowed. She walked straight to Ronin. "You should be resting," she said. "I'll rest when I'm dead," Ronin grunted. "Did you secure the perimeter?" "Yes, Commander," she said. The title hung in the air. "Commander, not guest. Not prisoner. My fleet has never taken prisoners before," Kaelara said softly. "We usually slaughter, but today, the rebels surrendered. They saw us saving each other. They saw honor. You gave us that." "Common sense," Ronin said. "Dead men don't pay taxes. And they don't join your empire." Kaelara looked at him. She looked at the gray hair, the scars, the weary posture. "You are free to go, Ronin," she said. "Your ship is repaired. I have filled your hold with platinum as payment. You can return to your drift." Ronin puffed on the cigar. He looked out the viewport at the stars. He thought about the rusty nail, the silence, the empty meals, the cold sleep. "But," Kaelara continued, her voice trembling slightly, a sound that terrified her generals more than her screaming. "By Vrakian law, he who saves the blood of a warlord becomes of her blood. You saved my life, you saved my honor." She extended her hand. I do not need another soldier. I have millions. I do not need a servant. I need a counterbalance. I have the fire. You have the steel. Without the steel, the fire consumes itself. Stay. Help me build something that lasts. Ronin looked at her hand. It was a monster's hand, really. But he didn't see a monster. He saw a leader who was finally learning to lead. He thought about the drifting life. It was safe. But Ronin had never liked safe. He stood up, wincing on his bad leg. He looked her in the eye. I'm not bowing, he warned. I don't do the Your Majesty crap. Kaelara smiled. It was a rare, genuine expression. I would tear your throat out if you did. Ronin smirked. And we're changing the uniform regs. The guys look like idiots in those capes. Agreed? Ronin reached out and clasped her hand. All right then, let's get to work. The galaxy still trembled when Kaelara roared. Old habits die hard, but the smart ones learned to fear the silence. They learned that if the High Warlord was screaming, you might survive. But if the gray-haired human standing next to her went quiet, if he put down his cigar and just stared at you, you were already dead. He never took a crown. He never took a fancy title. He remained just Ronin. But he brought order to chaos. He taught a race of monsters that strength isn't just about how hard you hit, but about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Decades later, they stood on a balcony overlooking a golden city. They were both old now. Kaelara's armor was ceremonial. Ronin leaned on a cane. Do you regret it? She asked him. The quiet drink you never finished? Ronin looked at the sunset. He looked at the peace they had built. Best drink I ever skipped, he said. There aren't many left who remember the old ways. The world is full of noise now, full of people screaming for attention, demanding respect they haven't earned. But you know the truth. You know that real power doesn't need a microphone. Real power is quiet. Real power is doing the job until it's done, whether anyone is watching or not. If you're one of the few who still lives by that code, welcome home. We'll keep the light on for you.